Hey, it's Shaves, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go for the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this 2 weeks, plus a day of change, I guess, from the 2nd of April to the 16th of April. But we're going to start with a reaction video once again, and this one is from AnimeGolem. He put out a tribute video, I assume, to Osamu Kobayashi, and it's a follow-up. It's called I Still Don't Forget This Summer, and it's a reference to the previous tribute that he worked with. It's another collab with a Mutual Dead Seeds, which I don't think I caught that last one, but I want to check out the current, the latest edition. I assume it's a anniversary to Osamu Kobayashi's passing. But yeah, let's check it out. I don't have much to say right now. It's because it really captures exactly the kind of thing that he does and what he's great at, which is very letting it speak for itself kind of deal. Very incidental, small, blinky you miss it, very human moments. Nice. With Beck and Paradise Kiss. I believe Paradise Kiss is the love part. I haven't seen that show yet. I do really gotta rewatch Beck. I feel so awful about being mid on that show. Because I went in with misplaced expectations, honestly. And I think I fell in love with his stuff way more since I saw his Naruto episodes. Rough. Yeah. Very, very, very poignant, and like really sweet in a backwards kind of weird way, I think. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I don't have much words for that, unfortunately. I just think this was a really, really nice sentiment. It feels like the tone was right. It felt like, almost, it didn't feel overly sappy or it's like kind of a celebration almost. But it has this twinge of like, man, you know what I mean? Like the realities of his passing. Yeah, it's again, it's hard to really quantify the specifics, because it's not like Golem's doing anything fancy or anything. You know, Golem mostly makes like mads, Sokka mads, and those have its own particular style, but it's not like, ooh, nice clip choice, whatever. But like, he did do a couple like really nice little love punctuation here, was really great. But then, yeah, mostly focusing on Beck. I think there was a little bit of Somebody's Dreamers here, I believe, and here, I believe, is Somebody's Dreamers. Someday's Dreamers, I'm sorry if that's incorrect. Not too much Paradise Kiss, but that's okay. It wasn't like, it's not trying to be fully comprehensive or anything. It's just sort of another assembly of things, of stuff that stands out. Yeah, this was really lovely. It's yeah, if you guys are not familiar with Kobayashi's work, legend, absolute legend. Now for vid that I don't, not good. No. Yeah, you get kind of I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, TheAnimeMen. I was not familiar with this channel, and I was pointed my way, and they shot up very, very quick, and they do mostly I guess challenge videos amongst themselves. They had a guy read One Piece in 5 months or something. Also, they've been making these like fake Vivo music videos for anime openings or something along those lines, and that's where they're amassing a lot of their audience. It seems like a lot of the views and attention, but they've shot up very, very quick. They have, what was it, 2 million? Might be overestimating. No, I'm not. 2.5 million subscribers, and you're like, wait, who? And their banner is in Comic Sans, we watch anime. And this is emblematic of that. No, the last one watching anime wins. I was pretty Look, I was interested in this video because honestly, it's like that's kind of an interesting idea. It's obviously framed as like a Mr. Beast type thing, but it is just like the boys. They have like their own house, like a content house of sorts. It seems like a content house. I don't know their full situation. I've not been following their content super avidly. But it seems kind of like a content house situation. And I can't knock because I am technically a part of one, even though I'm just one of 2 people who makes that stuff. I don't knock it. But they're just like in their room, in their like living room basically together, and watch anime until they fall asleep. And I guess they started at 6 p.m. and they're like, I guess they're challenging each other with pulling an all-nighter for anime. All right. And like they don't make it that far. I think it was they watch, and the other, because one of my things about this that made this interesting to me is like, oh, which anime are they going to watch? Because there are like, certain anime that you really can't binge, and that are not very easy to watch a lot of, and there's a challenge to that. Versus like One Piece, which is a very propulsive, you can watch a ton of episodes in one sitting and not feel like it at all. But then there's the other twist to this, where there was certain episodes where they had already seen it. They had already watched this show. Like they watched like JoJo Part 1. Like, okay, and then like they had all seen it, so they're just kind of sitting there watch through it or whatever. It really didn't feel like it was a matter of what they watched at all. It was decided by their patrons, if anything. Their Discord server, I guess. I don't know their patrons necessarily. I don't know if they have a Patreon, but it was like decided by their community basically, and not like that even really played a factor into like them being engaged with what's going on. It's just a stay awake challenge, and that's pretty disappointing. It's like, you could be doing this for like live action TV or what? Like, what about anime specifically, right? It was just weird. And then it wasn't footage is like, I'm not like a big like, oh, I'm filming this on my phone, right? Like, I'm not a big stickler about this, but like I know uncolor corrected 4K footage when I see it. And it's like, why are you doing this? This looks like ass. Like, you clearly have like the nice expensive camera, but don't know how to use it. It came across that way, and I'm just like, what the heck? But like, yeah, they're really trying to commit to making this whole thing a career, and they're doing okay, all things considered, with the views that they're getting. But this wasn't it, and I get the off interviews, like the interviews going into the challenge and then commenting on it outside of it. It felt like modern, like it felt like kind of like old school Big Brother or like reality television, kind of schmaltzy and like, but I'm like, why am I watching this on YouTube? You know what I mean? Like, YouTube's way, I think YouTube has kind of evolved past this point, in my opinion, at least. And it would, at least, yeah. And again, they're channeling this, like, at least the thumbnails challenging this Mr. Beast type thing. It's like day 3. It's one night. It's like from 7 p.m. till, and the result, and like the actual like challenge, like how it ended up going was very, very brutally underwhelming. Because like 2 guys just fall asleep because they put themselves in comfortable positions and just doze off. And they're like, you. And it's like, what? And then one guy got pretty screwed, actually. And everyone in the comments are like, I feel bad for this guy, because clearly it wasn't his fault. And like the call failed, and the way they had it is like, oh, you go through like a Discord call, and they kind of stream as they're going to the bathroom, but then the call disconnected, so the guy kind of booted him out of the challenge, even though the other guy's like, no, like what? There was no officiator, because like the guy who was like deciding this, like you're out of the challenge, was also participating in the challenge. You know, like there's no moderator to this, and I get it, it's a silly frat boy kind of, felt frat boyish to me. It's some kind of fratty boy like kind of challenge or whatever. Like it's not ain't that serious, pal. Okay, but it's not. It doesn't make for a compelling YouTube video, right? Like that. Yeah, the stakes aren't that high, but the stakes are the quality of the video, and I found that very discouraging. And clearly your comments found that discouraging too. They thought the guy got totally ripped off. And then right after that happens, they like immediately skip to like the final two contestants shaking hands, and that's the end of the challenge. Like that's so lame. It's so lame. And again, but it's also just there was no care into what specifically they were watching. It was just like random episodes of like the first 2 episodes of One Piece where they admit everyone's seen already. Like, why don't you watch something that like you go on a roulette or whatever, that it's stuff that none of your group has seen, because that would actually be compelling. That would actually keep them awake and make the challenge a little more interesting. Like, is it interesting that they're rewatching episodes of One Piece and trying to stay awake, and that's the challenge? Like, when you put it that way, it's like, what are we doing here? And I hate to be a pedant. JJK is on the thumbnail. I didn't catch them watching JJK. Not that it made a difference, but again, it's like thing on the thumbnail because it's gonna get more clicks, and then it just doesn't happen. Like they watched Konosuba. I don't even think the latest season. I think it was. I was seeing the footage. I'm like, that's episode 1 of season 1. You're just watching like the first 2 episodes, and then just hopping to One Piece right after that. The first 1 or 2 episodes of that. Then JoJo's part 1 apparently. Then Hunter x Hunter, I guess, 86, which is nice. Okay. And like that's it. I think that was it. I don't even remember. Because it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And that was what was just, because there's, to be like, you could make it better, but out of this dumb whatever child. But like, I don't know. Come on. But I just wanted to talk about it because it was so uniquely lame, I guess. It wasn't like, because it's obviously stuff that I click off of. I'm just like, I can't, whatever, dude. I have nothing to, yeah. But this one's just like kind of comical and like, what? Anyway, maybe I guess it's entertaining in that regard, but it's kind of lame. Yeah. I'm at a bit of a crossroad here. I guess this video did give me more frustration than like enjoyment, or just that kind of the friction, I guess. But I don't want to be too harsh because it's clear it seems to be their first video, and they have a lot of care into this. It's just sort of the craft, I guess. And the other, yeah, okay, I'll give it a yeah. It's kind of mean, I guess. The SierraComix, I checked out the nearly lost anime that changed my life about Cho Kusei, and there is a 3-part video. The other 2 parts have come out afterwards, but she seems to be the #1 fan of this show that isn't fully subbed. And she's subbed to 4 episodes herself. Cool. It was just like the way that this came across in the video that felt a little possessive. It kind of, I don't think I've ever really seen it before in a YouTube video, to be honest. And I think that makes it interesting in its own right, and not like wholly bad, because I can't blame you when you find a title that it doesn't feel like anyone else is talking about, and you kind of make it your own, and you kind of like, this is my thing, you know? And like that, I don't blame him for doing that. I guess it was just the way she went about doing it in this way, and also just demonstrating her loyalty towards it, while also not putting it in the best light, in a light that's like, wow, I'm really interested, I guess. I had heard of this show. Again, even just the way that kind of that was framed at the very beginning. You've not heard of this show, kind of deal. I happened to, because I was reading the Anime Encyclopedia, and the premise seemed interesting to me, and I put it on my watch later. So, but it's not on my radar or anything, and I knew it was in pretty bad quality, but also like in its entirety. It was nearly lost anime, and so I caught myself earlier. But Hayden, I have like, I'm kind of like, I don't want to go that hard with all the notes that I did take for this video, because Hayden left a very polite, eloquent, long comment, kind of giving the various critiques that I probably would have said as well. Like the title and thumb, the thumb's fine. The title that like doesn't really play in to the video itself, in both like it being nearly lost, like it is available in its entirety, it's just not all subbed, and the 3 dubs, the Catalan, which is she was right in the sense that like I had not heard of that language. It's like a variation of Spanish, 2 Korean dubs and a Cantonese dub that exist but aren't available online, and calling that lost media, or just basically lost media. And like there might be some credence to that, maybe, but it is that kind of like, it's not online, therefore lost media vibes, which is kind of something the lost media community is really kind of grapple with after this kind of explosion of interest in the past couple years. They're like, no, just because it's not uploaded to the internet doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore, or whatever. Just this feverish of like trying to find something obscure. And that changed your life also didn't really play into anything personal. You didn't really go into yourself, or talking about yourself too much, besides how you personally came across it, which I will criticize a little bit, because Hayden didn't necessarily. I got some kind of bad juju from like, you found it from this. You love Sailor Moon, and then you found this game that has a bunch of crossover characters, including Chokusei and Sailor Moon, and it also has Nurse. I wrote them down. It was Goldfish Warning and Nurse Kurumi and Goldfish Warning. Sorry, and they were like, I tried. I didn't like it. And then Goldfish Warning. I'm not interested. Come on. Like it's just pet peeve of mine, I guess. But it's like, I don't need you to show open contempt. Is a strong word. Contempt is a very strong word. But just like indifference to other series in a video like this, you really don't need to say it. You didn't. It was like, I happened to find this video game with Sailor Moon, and this one series really caught my attention. One of those, really, you don't even. It's okay if you feel indifferent about Kurumi and Goldfish Warring. That's totally fine. But like, to voice that in the video, I'm just like, I didn't like it. That's just me as a sensitive boy, throwing some of these episodes under the bus, being like, don't watch these episodes. I'm like, why? Why not? What? Especially if you love this series so much, that you've gone to such lengths to collecting the physical VHS, ripping it yourself, subtitling several of these episodes. It's great dedication, and I commend that. It's just the way you went about describing this show, very, very brief summary, and then like a character rundown, and then some notable episodes, and skip these. And I'm like, wait, what? Skip? Why? When you don't even talk about them, really. It didn't feel like I got a good sense of what the show was. And if the video was more about you and your relationship to it, and you subbing it, and you putting it on Internet Archive, and your search for everything. And I've seen other videos do this before with, I think Sarah Moon's a good example. Not Sarah Moon, I'm sorry. That's the translator. Raymona. With the Sailor Moon video, and also Saint Seiya. Raymona, where she made the videos really long, but they were long because she was describing the hunt itself, and not so much what she found or learned. And I get that as a YouTuber, the process is a story in and of itself, and you end up making the video about that. But it doesn't always make for the most compelling thing compared to why you were doing the hunt in the first place, right? Sometimes it's warranted when you need to give proper context for or whatever. It's not like a sin or whatever. Nothing here is an objectively wrong thing to do in videos or anything. It's just like it became at the cost of really getting to know this show, I guess, and showing more of it off. It was weird on a visual technical sense here. I couldn't follow the logic where sometimes you would show clips from the anime and other times, like maybe a third of the time, it was just this background that occasionally like flickered in a weird way. And it was clearly obvious it was like a filler image of like, I don't know what to put here, so here, and that's fine. Like, I've certainly been there. I know what you mean. But that was weird if it's like you have all of the episodes, you've ripped several of them yourself. Why can't it be all just the image? I don't know, the footage of the show, I guess. I get maybe a background of like, for the text or something. I don't know. A lot of things that you said didn't feel substantiated, or was like went by really quick, or wasn't really represented well visually. I wasn't able to follow what you meant by the art style finding its footing, and then they change it around episode 25. What? And I clicked around in the episodes because you uploaded them to Internet Archive. I really can't tell a difference in style. I'm sure there is, because obviously shows do that. But have you considered if it was a different animation director? Or what do you mean, like the style changed? Like, was there, and you didn't really go into that, or not just the, how it changes at episode 25 out of 39. Okay. But even just like once it finds its footing, like, what do you mean by that? It was a lot of claims like that, and the, mentioning the digital effects, or the computer effects, I guess. What about the clip that you showed of them like singing or whatever had anything to do with what you were talking? Like, what computer effects? And I get like, the title logo like tilts upward and it looks kind of jacked, kind of wonky, whatever. Okay, that's one. like what are you talking about? I don't know. And yeah, it's just that as someone who is very hyper focused or specific about like every single thing that I'm talking about has a specific thing I'm showing, and not out of I'm not saying you're lazy. I will say there was a video I watched this week towards like later on that they were very openly like, I couldn't find it, I don't want to edit it, I don't want to do that, and like at least that's honest. But that was just strange to me. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think maybe I'm confusing the point. But you say that like you would have appreciated that the budget that went to the change in art style, which again I don't know what art style change you're talking about. You didn't describe what it is. Like, the character's hair gets pointier, or that the backgrounds are more elaborate, or the animation gets more of what I don't know. I have no idea what you mean. But you were like, I wish that change, the budget for that change, instead went to a Laserdisc release. I'm not an expert on anime production, but like I'm almost positive that is not how it works. This is a TV anime, and like just because they allocate a budget to something in the production of the making of the anime doesn't mean they then had less money to not put a release out of a certain type. Like, a VHS or laser. And there's several anime that are in this position that have only gotten VHS releases. I've only gotten up to Laserdisc and never got DVD. And if a DVD, they're even trapped on DVD and haven't gotten to Blu-ray. Like, that's just, yeah. And I understand the frustration as a fan of the show that it's trapped in a certain quality. And it is in a pretty rough looking shape, unfortunately. That's awful. And I know what you mean. But I don't, the budget, no, I don't I don't think that's how it works. I don't, and again, I'm not an expert. I just don't. I've never heard of it working like that, and I don't think that's how it works. General small things around the video, and I can understand it when it's your first video. And this is just, and again, these are things that are like, not like video no-nos or something. Like, don't do this ever or some whatever. Obviously, there's stronger choices and weaker choices, and it always depends on the context and how it's used, right? Like, there's certain things. You also you do mention at the end credits of this video that like there's an old version of this video that you had to kind of completely redo for this and that reason. And then there's within the video, you're talking like, this isn't in the script, but I'll say this. I added this in the script later, but I'll say this. Again, you're making the process of making the video part of the content and not really making the content itself, right? Like, you're not focusing on Chokuse, you're focusing, and these are just one-off, these are just one-off lines. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But like, I change the script all the time in my videos after I've recorded them and I'm editing them, or like I throw something else in, or as I'm recording I think to say something and I add that. But like, you don't need to lampshade that because the audience has no idea. You'll have some idea, but it's a very small point to make. And there's other video. There's again another video later on that does this as well, but that was at least to comedic effect. This just kind of like felt like you're covering your bases for something, as if I know that, oh, that's off. Like, it's okay if something was off script, you know. In fact, I find that separate. I keep foreshadowing digest videos, but there was a video in later where like I kind of wish they were more off script, because it was very clear that they were kind of on a rail with their script, and every time they kind of blossomed away from it was when it felt more engaging. So like, it's okay if it was off script. You don't have to bring that up. But little things with this, like, oh, this one fan art that is proving that this Korean dub exists, but they didn't want me to show it. Like, it's very nice that you asked for permission. And I'm not saying you don't need to. I think that's good that you do. And I'm just saying a lot of us don't. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or bad, whatever. Like, that's awesome you do. And it's just like, if you do if this happens and they don't want you to show it, I don't see bringing the point up. You know what I mean? Like, or it's just like, oh, there's some art in the description. You don't have to like kind of admit in the video that I asked and they don't want me to show it. Do you know what I mean? You could just be like, oh, there's some art in the description that kind of proves my point of this. And as a viewer, I'm not actually going to be like, why didn't you show it? Maybe I will. Maybe I will in a different. Maybe. But that was just an awkward moment for me. It was just like, oh. And again, like a flaw of the video or something. It was just adding to this all these little points here and there that it really felt like. And you're not making a point about like, this is my first video, guys, or something, and like that's nice. But you know, and I'm not holding that. I don't think that needs to hold it. It has some sway, but like, it's still a video. And anyway. But I like it's interesting that there's a part 2 and 3 to this. You do tease that like this was like pitted as the next Sailor Moon, and it didn't quite achieve that. And I would certainly like to know how that factors, or like what you mean by that. But it is just great that a show like this has a cheerleader like you, that is able to advocate for it, make videos about it, talk about it. Although I will give you one more bit of encouragement. I hope this has mostly been like constructive and encouraging for you, and that even though I'm more like kind of lukewarm on it, I'm more critical. You do mention that you only you didn't really, because it was a little muddled point, because you mention when you're going through the episodes that like after episode 22, you were like, I'm not talking about the rest of the videos because they're not subbed, and you will not be commenting on them without the proper context, aka subs. Like, you need the subs for the context. It depends. It depends, I think. There are this is coming from somebody who is watching a ton of unsubbed anime, like a ton, like 200 episodes of Sally the Witch, and 200 episodes of Himitsu no Ako-chan. And I don't know if Chokusei is as complicated as those shows or more complicated, but it is pretty easy to follow those episodes of Akko and Sally specifically, and other shows that have kind of a similar, not similar, but like a simple concept, like a baseball series. I've seen several baseball series without subtitles, and those are not difficult to follow. You can't follow them completely. It's not a complete experience, for sure. And I'm never gonna claim to be an expert of these series just because I watched them. You know what I mean? Especially does I watched them without fully comprehending the language. And I make note, because I've been making notes about all the episodes and stuff. There's some episodes where I know this will probably be better once I know exactly what they're saying. But I can tell there's really good emotion going on. I can tell in a general sense where the story is going. And, I think I've watched anime long enough where I can understand the basic phrases of, like, that person said yes, this person said what, this person is saying this and that. This is what's going on in a general sense. I'm not saying you should, you have an obligation or something to watch these without subtitles or something. But I would just encourage you that, like, as long as you're transparent that you watch these without subtitles and you're not fluent in Japanese or anything, it's like, this is what I'm presuming is happening. To my understanding, this is what this episode does. Then, by all means, I would say encourage you to try those and to convey that the value of this series in its entirety to your audience. Because it just came off. It feels like you did watch all of it, but you don't want to comment on the stuff that isn't subbed. Which I understand the hesitation of that, but I don't know. I think if you drum up more interest by describing what these unsubbed episodes do, and what the series is trying to accomplish, that makes it worth subbing, then it's more likely, at least more than zero, that this show gets picked up by a fan subber. They're like, yeah, sure, this only has 19 episodes left. That's nothing. Or it's less than 19. It's it was 20. Here's the thing. Your video, the way that your video was kind of structured in kind of a all over the place way, and the way so you weren't backing up some things, in terms of just like saying like the art style thing. I did take it upon myself to be like, wait, what's the situation with like the subs and everything? So I look at Nya and I look at AB, and I know you seem very anti-piracy, which is understandable. That's fine. But it is just like, okay, what is available? And it does seem they just have episodes 1 through 20 subbed, probably not well. I like that you did break down like these are the two different groups that have done it. This group did it poorly or whatever, and I guess you kind of retimed them to make them soft subs, like some of the episodes, and then you subbed 4. So it seems that there's a total of 20 plus 4 that you subbed, 21, 22, 25, 27. I don't know why you skipped around, but see, it's probably why you skipped around is because you knew those episodes are interesting and valuable, because you could tell, because you've probably watched it subbed. That would be my guess. And I would have been interested for you to go into those 4 episodes, to be honest with you, because you're the one that subbed them, and I think that's interesting from the perspective of the person that fan subbed them to make a video about it. Again, this is a very unique, rare instance of like the person who's really taking care of all this and preserving it and subbing it, making a video about it too. That's really interesting and cool. But yeah, so now it's 24 out of 39. Yeah, so that's 15 episodes. That's not too many compared to some of the projects that some of these other subgroups are trying to do. I think if you do make the case about it and everything, I think there might be some people like, yeah, I'll help you. We'll throw in and get a typesetter, get a QC, and there may be a person that I don't know, you have some basic level of Japanese, but someone who has even better Japanese that can translate it even faster. Anyway, yeah, but they're very encouraging ultimately. Again, I like in it, seeing an anime like this getting its day in court almost. But yeah, there's just things about it that felt very frustrating and incomplete to me personally. But still, I'm happy it exists. Well done. Looking forward to the subsequent parts. Okay, and I have some videos that I thought were decent, pretty good. And I'm gonna start with this Eyepatch Wolf video because I'm not gonna give it disappointed necessarily, because I did walk away liking it as much as I was expecting to, but this was like the first Eyepatch Wolf video that I knew about in advance that he was making, because he's a lot more present these days with a stream channel and Versus Wolves. He talked about it doesn't help he doesn't put it in the description because no one knows what this thing is, and so he doesn't he kind of has to hide it, I guess, which is sad. What is the name of this freaking thing? He takes so long. Vermis. He actually has the title, Why You Should Play Vermis, right? And he talked about this particular book. It's a book about that is framed as a video game that doesn't exist. And he's like, this was the whole reason I made this video. And talks about it, like, kind of lampshades almost, being like, yeah, the whole hour and 20 minutes was the prelude pretty much, but then after that he takes hour 19 to 10 minutes, 9 minutes ish, just talking about the artist and everything else that they've done, and how kind of the credibility, and kind of re-going over all the topics he's already done, and then getting to Vermis, which I was the most interested in, because I really like this idea of compromising to a medium that you can't achieve. Making something that is intended to be one thing, but in a medium that you can achieve yourself, right? And I don't think he mentions it, but I think it was glossed over, and that's why I'm ultimately disappointed in the video, because I think that it's the why make a fake video game, right? Where it's simply impossible to make, it's a gargantuan amount of effort to make a video game compared to making a piece of art. Making one image, or a series of images, or even a piece of music, or writing, literature. Literature is it's free. This app is free. You can just do it. Obviously, each of these still require a level of creativity and skill, but it's this interesting compromise to me. This is just my perspective, because I do have this idea, and it was a little while ago, and I'm just moving on to other stuff, and I don't know if I'll ever really do it. But when I was watching Cutie Honey, it was the first time that I felt I really want to make something I really want to make an installment of this franchise myself, and I've never felt that about any manga anime series before. It was a really exciting moment, it felt like, but obviously my picture ideal is an anime, and anime is very much like a video game, very hard, next to impossible, miracle to pull off, pipe dream type of thing, especially the format I would want to do it, because it's like an O&A type. I wouldn't want it to be a TV series or movie, right? So it's like, okay, how do I... So then it really is just kind of doing all the concept stuff and putting it in a different medium without the execution. And I think John does tap into that at one point, talking about Vermis, where it's such a kind of... It's so wrapped in misery and mundanity, that he's like... I think he says, it's like, it'd be miserable to play this game, but it's so compelling as a book. As this guy, as a kind of a player's guide almost, but that's what's interesting. There's like, what is that compromise? Is it what compromises is this art making, or is it better off as this thing, and maybe as a video game? Like, it's not meant to be a video game at all, but it's taking the idea. It's like video game literature almost, which it kind of is. But obviously, there's more to Veramis specifically because of the artistic component, and John didn't even go into the aesthetics of the book really. I think he talks more about the substance of it, but like, yeah, it. And so I'm focusing so much on this Veramis section because it's the most interesting part of the video. And the rest of it kind of feels like he has to make it this way. A, because Bizarre World of Blank is a very successful title for him. And in a pseudo series that the algorithm will actually reward. Because he does vocalize multiple times that he's worried about the nicheness. And why does anyone care? Would anyone care about this subject? The fact even that like he can't even, and I get like the YouTube meta here with the timestamps is to not put that in the timestamp because you spoil the video effectively, because he calls this section of Veramis introduction over, which is like a fun little, you know, that's probably his reasoning, but like the YouTube meta game that I think he's playing is simply that the idea is that like a lot of viewers who see the timestamps will scroll through and decide from those timestamps whether or not to keep watching, and potentially kill the retention of the video and thus kill the ad revenue and the views of the video. So I think that's a strategic play on his end, and I'm not like criticizing it as a bad thing, whatever. But it's for me it's indicative. Plus the length and everything. But just all the examples that he's mentioning. So there's one point where he's just rattling them off, like a list of these, like, you know, Ben drowned, all these like horror analog, kind of fake video game, creepypasta story type things, and just rattling them off at one point. But it felt like that was the whole video, where like it's just a parade of examples, and I think that is different from his previous Bizarre World videos, which I really love, obviously, of Garfield, or actually it's not really Garfield Underworld was what the internet did to them, really, and this is kind of in that vein, but it's obviously more of like being an influencer, which he actually doesn't even call Bizarre World or whatever. Obviously like martial arts and psychics, right, in that lane pretty much. But like this one just felt those other videos feel more like each one is building on top of each other, and each one kind of is important to bring up and everything, and it feels like they're all culminating to the series of points that he's making. I think I think what made this a little more transparent, and this is probably for his own sanity to just organize his thoughts, because a lot of it references each other immediately and has a lot of relevance to each other. And so it seems like a topic that was hard to organize, so I can understand that perspective. So he clearly like bulleted it as like we're going to answer these 5 questions. And he just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basically. But something about that format, and then packing it with these example after example after example, 2 of which he spoils for no real reason. Like, and I watched both of them with like including the spoilers and everything, but like I don't know why you had to do that. I was watching to be like, what's the greater point that you're making here? And they don't really make any greater point than what he was already making before he gets to that spoiler part. Do you know what I mean? So that was weird. There was a lot of that sort of thing. Obviously, all the examples are interesting, and I do think he has gotten better and better with describing things, putting things in a certain way, really evoking the passion of like why you should like or care and make this thing interesting, why you should click off this video and go experience this thing right now. Like that happened multiple times for me, and that's a good sign. Like that's fun, because it just means you're being exposed to cool shit. And I love a creator this big that is able to do that for people, assuming they actually do that. And he does call attention to that almost when he's talking about this one game of what is it called? Veritude something, where he's like, there's a lot of explainer videos that have almost 1 million views, and like he's gonna get that in the next couple days with this video. So he's kind of in the same, and he knows that. But then the original project, Valverde or whatever. The original upload only has like 75K. Like it's not reaping any of the rewards that these other content creators are getting from it, including John. Yeah, like the original actual, maybe he's just taking the last upload or something, or the lowest viewed one, 75K. And then there's an explainer video that he points out that has 700K. And now John has over 700K in 2 days. Of course, because it's a great thumbnail, great title, exactly what his audience wants. Like, he knows what he's doing. I don't think anyone's going to care about it. Come on, John. You know this is a banger. You know it. And that's why I'm a little disappointed, because I was like, I think you really could have just done, because it feels like all of this other stuff was preamble, because he says as much, it's pretty much preamble, of just because he couldn't, like he was able to make the Fear and Hunger video because Fear and Hunger was doing fairly well. It was fairly popular on like Twitch or whatever. And it shows 4 million views on that video. But I get I don't think I can afford to put out a video that might not get over 1 million views if people don't know what this thing is, if they don't know what Verxis, I keep forgetting the fucking name of the game, Vermis, it's not a game, a book. But then, yeah, I guess for me, the breadth of just how much you had to talk about and led it to being a little like just like a recommendation video almost, kind of. It kind of felt like that at points. Be like, here's this piece of media you probably never heard about that relates to my point and has one bit that obviously adds to his greater point of answering these questions, but also just feels like, hey, you should check this thing out, you know, which is fine. But it's a different thing than really understanding this fundamental challenge or question that I think Vermis metatextually was presenting, or these other, and just this idea of fake video games are presenting, where it is the dream of achieving something in an art form of one medium that you can't achieve, and so compromising it to bringing it to a different medium. What do you gain and what do you lose? Because when he was going over Vermis, and for one thing, I was not super enthused about how he presented it at first, because he's doing all this really cool video effects and has this like narration that he says he adapts. Thank you for saying that, because I'm like, how much of this is a direct like, are you quoting the book? And if you were quoting the book, I would have really liked that it was quotes at the bottom or the top, or just to show that these are not your words, because you describe other art in this very video as well as your other videos just like this, exactly like this. So I could have very easily, and your viewers definitely as much, could have just assumed that you're making this cool prose to make it seem cooler than it is, or whatever. Not that it is really cool, but like it, you know, like all these really cool, and I get that, and it's even just but even just that action, right? It's like achieving, it's sort of like mangamation. I was just thinking of this, you know, videos that do mangamation, those are great, but it is sort of like trying to achieve something in manga or trying to get it to a different medium that it's not in, and what are the changes and compromises that you have to do, and when does it no longer become that thing? And what I was going to say though is, like, as you were like describing it and showing some of the pros and the panels and stuff like that, I don't know if you would approach if it's a scenario where you approach these objects and press A and this text box would show up, because it's like some of the game guide stuff that it's describing and like fleshing the world out in this way, how much of that would be in this hypothetical game itself? How is this presented in game, right? I think that's different from literature, from a picture book. This is a picture book, right? So it's got words, it's got pictures. And that's not to belittle it. That's really not. Because I got fucking, I just got a little while ago, Bill Watterson, Calvin Hobbes, he just put out this new project. and it's sort of a mixed media thing, but it's a picture book, but it's not for kids or anything like that. And that's what I mean. I'm not saying that to belittle it. I'm just trying to describe what it is. It's a game guide. Well, it's not a game guide if it's a guide to a game that doesn't exist. And I'm not trying to I'm actually or something like that, I guess. It is just to really get the reality, because the medium is the message, right? And so you don't even bring that up at all. And not that that's a problem or anything. It was just I just was expecting something else or more, and maybe I shouldn't have, because these sort of expectations sometimes they lead me to enjoy a thing less. Is what it is then. But I like anticipating things. Anyway, I did like the video, of course, because I was very interested in Veramis, and I think you delivered in describing it and conveying how interesting it is in the ways that it is. And the rest of it was yeah, that's nice. But it's a lot. It's an hour 20. It's an hour 20 of that. It's but he's still a really good creator on a moment-to-moment basis, so it's fine. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that one. Aikatsu is love. Craftsdwarf had a bit of a mind melt. It's just I get to do one brainworm video, just one. It's just kind of him rambling for 10 minutes about Aikatsu. I couldn't discern a broader point that he was making, or a much point that he was making, I guess. It just felt like you needed to exercise why you love this thing, and that's great. And that's all you need. And that's why I was able to still enjoy it and watch all the way through and be able to comment on it now, because this is a level of honesty that I don't think a lot of creators are at. Right? You clearly have a comfortability with your audience and in yourself. And I'm not saying this is cringe, bro. Good for you being cringe. I'm not I was just maybe he's coming off that way. No. Good. Wow, you're honest. No. Yeah, but it was just really wholesome and sweet. That it's sort of this is how it's honestly making me feel. This is where I'm at with it, and I like the kind of getting it out of my system type of thing. And it is funny too when you still have your serious cadence of the way you describe things and analyze things, but in this framing, in this context of your brain, the brainworms that you describe. I was the minute you said that, I was oh, okay. Yeah, okay. And it again, it just shows the level of comfortability to make this sort of thing, that it shows a level of sophistication and polish that it doesn't seem it on the surface. I don't know what character to relate this to in fiction, but it's that character that clearly has more to him and is very wise and smart, but acts like a dumbass. You could probably fill in plenty of characters in your head about that, but those are the coolest characters. Those are the badasses, right? It kind of had those vibes, I guess. Ryo Saiba, I guess, is one of them. I don't know if I'm this reminded me of the main character of City Hunter. What? But it's something like that where but that character, I guess it would relate to that, where, and that's just off the top of my head, where that character has such a confidence in himself and the clear skill, but still kind of, yep, I'm gonna have some fun with some Aikatsu. You know what I mean? Yeah, this was a really, really fun video in that capacity, and I was encouraged to see it. Yeah. At last, episode 4 of Berserk the Motion Comic by Studio Taka. And I always caveat and say that I feel bad that I lost contact with them when my Discord got hacked years ago, and I just lost contact with them, and we never got it back, and I never really followed up or anything. Here's my new account or something. pretty awkward. I feel bad. But it does. It feels like that. I don't know what direction they're going, but they haven't really been posting that much in the way of like the video essays that I used to be editing. But that's fine because I think it's fair to really focus their efforts on the thing people want to see and making the Patreon. And you don't even need to do them much in the ways of update videos or anything. Just head nose to grindstone, make the thing. And I think the results are as good as they've been in the previous couple of episodes, where very, very faithful to the comic, manga, comic. I don't know why I said comic. I don't know. Very faithful, as well as some impressive animation. And I felt like it this time. I didn't do this for the previous episodes, but I did read along the manga as this went, just to see about what they changed, what challenges did they have to overcome. I was just kind of curious in this instance, and the things that they added were interesting. The one thing I do remember and I do want to comment on as a adaptation change, which was and so what it is the scene in the manga where Guts is being haunted by the ghosts and everything, and it's an interesting difference in the in mediums, and that the original anime probably did this too. But it's like all the ghosts are haunting him, and in the manga, they've written very specific things. So so as a reader, you can read exactly the things that the ghosts are saying. But in this motion comic, the way that the audio went, and again, probably the anime did this too. So it's just a medium thing, not like a specific choice. The way that all it was all echoing and overlapping with each other, you could make some things out, but it was mostly like a cacophony of voices that disturbs Guts. But I think that's an interesting difference in medium, where you can't necessarily, it's harder to convey that in manga than it is in anime, or vice versa, or weirder. It's just different. But the change that was interesting, that I think was interesting, was he shoots his arm cannon into the air to kind of like silence the ghost, it seems. And the motion comic adds, or it seemed to add, I didn't catch this in the chapter, when he fires it up, it goes up and you see the silhouettes of the God Hand there. And he also flashes back to remembering Casca. He just kind of sees like a glimpse of Casca almost. It's like as a way to like remember her almost. And that's very interesting. And I think I understand why they, it's an emotional, impactful moment. And there's things about like in this production, the OP and ED specifically, that it's like, oh, they really want to get to this scene. They really want to get to this other moment and this shot and this shot. Because those are the most memorable moments we all know and love, but they're trying to be faithful as an adaptation, because the stuff that they're covering hasn't actually been given a full, faithful one-for-one adaptation really in animated form. So that's why they're doing it this way, even if it's not the most compelling material compared to what they're showing in the OP and ED for the most part. But what it made me think was like, there's a reason Miura didn't do that, and not to be like, oh, Miura is better because he's the original author or something. I'm just like, I see it as, and not even as, oh, he hadn't planned that far ahead or something, and that could be a safe assumption to make. I'm seeing it where, at this point in the story, the perspective character is Puck, not Guts. Puck is the one who's meeting this character for the first time, just as the audience is for the first time. We don't know, and I can understand in this instance, if it was a new viewer, the shot of the woman character leads to some intrigue. Oh, who is that, right? And obviously the Godhand characters, who you would see later, like a couple chapters later. Anyway, but I think it makes sense to not show that, because it's from Puck's perspective. All he sees is Guts shooting the thing in the air, and then, or him laughing or whatever. You're not really in his head, in Guts's head, and seeing these various things or whatever. So that just made me think about that, and I didn't realize that this was all from Puck's perspective specifically until that moment, and I see that being a difference in the manga. I'm like, well, that's really interesting. And what does that change as a dynamic? So effectively, what was added feels a little bit more like fan service, because it feels like an enhanced moment as an emotional, to enhance the emotions for Guts as a character as we know him, as existing readers, as existing fans of Berserk who have already read through all of Golden Age and are, read the whole thing, and are just kind of using the motion comic as a re-experiencing type moment. That's for us. That's fan service. And not in like fan service therefore bad. No, it's for the fans to enhance, to try to finding a way to enrich the story in their own way. And I think that's a fair play. I don't think it was a poor choice. I just think it was an interesting, like, what does that change as a different dynamic? I think in the manga, it re-emphasizes that this is from Puck's perspective, seeing this character, observing what makes him tick, who is he, what are his thoughts, and perspective and everything. Whereas the motion comic feels like it's more coming from Guts as someone we already know has gone through all of this stuff. And definitely like emphasizing on the bifurcating the girl, and it's like, how does that, the way that makes him feel. And the manga conveys that too, of course, but again, that's all from Puck's perspective, right? Anyway, there was something I thought was interesting, and then seeing the certain things when you're reading the manga with the motion comics, seeing the stuff that they're adding in terms of what's an animation that's all original, versus like what they're taking the existing panel of and what they have to tweak, being like, oh, that could be a more flowy shape like his cape or something, versus a static manga panel. Like, it would be kind of weird to animate it like that. So changes like that were very interesting to see. And I'm not trying to judge in quality better or worse or anything like that. It's just, I love adaptation stories like that. Anyway, Otskare, great job. I hope you continue more. It's really encouraging to see them continue. I believe this is the first time I'm talking about Basic Boy, a shoujo manga focused channel. And he's talking about, I'm not like other shoujo, I'm sci-fi, and specifically Please Save My Earth, They Were 11, and Ryuosei. Although I think there is one on the cover that I don't think he talked about in depth. I'm not sure. Well, I do really like the conceit of the video and focus of it, as well as the research involved here. I think he was very thorough, even going way further back, before manga was a super popular thing. I'm just like, where is sci-fi in the context of Japan in general, before then women getting their hands on it and stuff, and their approaches. Not needing to, it doesn't feel like he needed to be super thorough, like he's trying to, reference everything. He's just being very specific, as well as being specific of like the kinds of sci-fi, like this is what's influential and why is it influential. This note about They Were 11 and the question of gender is very interesting. This question of Please Save My Earth, of reincarnation, is very interesting, and how does that play in, and this is very influential for this and that reason. So yeah, I think the analysis and the history and everything all felt really solid, all felt really valuable. I just think it's all in the matter of the presentation that it doesn't wow me in a particular way, and I don't know if this is the case with his other videos, but it definitely this was definitely like reading directly off a script, very, very focused on pretty much just that script. There were like two moments, one kind of in the middle or almost, and one at the end where his emotions come out in a way that's like, there's charisma, there's character, there's something entertaining in his presence, in his delivery on camera. Because the majority of the video is him on camera, right? It's what we're watching. And that personality definitely very clearly came out when it was off-script moments, where it was either like the oh shit or whatever, like a certain kind of like jumpy moment in one of the manga that he was talking about, and then towards the end where he kind of breaks down almost, and talks about a particular thing or whatever. I found those two small moments, they stick out to me because that felt like a very infectious, fun, kind of like engaging part of the video. And the rest of it really felt bogged down by being very specific with the wording and not even in a wording that's like really trying to sell you on these titles at all. It feels just kind of like a lecture or like info dump. And I think it's it makes it for being very pristine and probably seal in terms of like verified and accurate and informative and additive, and I don't want to take any of that away from that. It was just harder for me to follow in that as a result, because he's not I don't know, he's just not making it in a video format that is carrying a certain narrative that gets me to care, or that gets me interested in these particular series. I've seen They Were 11, the movie at least, and I was interested in Ryosei. I actually for some reason I didn't know it was a shoujo series. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know why I didn't know that. And I've obviously heard of Please Save My Earth, but it's just not on my radar at the moment. But yeah, like all of that, all of the actual bare elements here are good, but it was just this particular one, and I do think it was just this particular subject I happened to catch him on like this. I'm not like, this is probably all his videos. I don't really suspect that, because based on the subjects of his other stuff, like the Marmalade Boy video seems very interesting, as kind of like this this modern perspective, looking back at this 90s and the absurdities of the romance will they won't they type of thing, does seem like a popcorn kind of having fun type of thing, and having him give a lot of attitude and personality and just riffing on it in a way that like it's just exciting and entertaining to see. I don't know if that's the case with that video, but I would be interested. But yeah, like, so I think it was just purely the approach to this video was just like he wanted to do it this way, and as a result it kind of comes off kind of dry and just dry and formless. Not formless, I don't know. It just didn't have that much in the way of like character, or not like these things have to have jokes or something. I never want to impose people having jokes, especially because I'm not very good at them. I don't think, at least I'm not a very humorous person. I'm a very serious person. So I never really want to imply that or enforce that. But I guess just in this particular one, it felt like it was very much like I have to read off this thing and then be very specific with my words, because I want to convey this in a very efficient, tight, informative way. And like, no knock on that, especially just doing it like that, because for me, I was way too self-conscious to try to do that myself when I was trying to make my encyclopedia video, and I had the script over there, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it that way. So mad props into being on camera and presenting it in this way. It's beyond me. This is unscripted right now, so that's why I'm okay with, whatever. But yeah, that was, yeah. But anyway, I was happy to finally check out a video of his, and looking forward to more. Very interested, especially because this goes without saying, I think, very underrepresented section of our community, shoujo manga. Which it needs way more. It needs way more voices in it, for sure. Study of Schwartz explaining postmodernism beyond bad faith. Gotta level with you. Didn't understand a single thing in the video. Not one. I was like, the takeaway. I have a takeaway. I couldn't comprehend, but the vibe I got. Don't read this book if you want to actually understand postmodernism, or like see the appeal of it, or just in a good faith way. This is like trying to make it. I like the sentence at the end of the video. It was like, they want to make sure it's the last book, the first book and the last book you read on it, and like, don't bother. And this it reminded me a lot of this kind of, it's just like about the general internet, or I guess human experience, where people make it their business to assuage people away from certain things so that they don't have to think about it. Like what's this postmodernism thing, which is very, I'm sure you would say it's not complicated, but I don't know, I found it impenetrable And I don't know if it was the way you convey it, because it's not like the video is supposed to like explain postmodernism and then say why this book is bad or something. You didn't go that approach, which is fine, because I think your focus is very more, I don't want to say academic so much as like very investigative, dissecting this particular thing and not like coddling the audience of what this thing is, or like what are they talking about. I think that's fair to make that judgment and go about it the way you did. And I do think that like the contradictions and the sightings and the absences of certain authors and the handling of various of sources and things, that was followable, but like all the detail, it genuinely, I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what my encyclopedia video feels to people. The moment I like I don't think, I don't know, like was that why? Like is it just independent? Because you know it's very similar in that way, for it's, you know, giving all these examples from a book and refuting in various ways and showing these I had similar, and also just the different sections being color coded was very nice, and I was like, yeah, I did that as well. Now I'm like, oh, you took like that. No. But I was like, yeah, that's good. That's the approach I did too. And but I will say that what was really engaging, what kept my attention with it, despite the script and the subject being just gobbledygook, I was like, what are these words? You know, and that again, that's not to insult you or the subject or anything like that. It's just me being a dum-dum, just being kind of uninformed, and understanding that you're not, the purpose of the video is not to handhold the viewer through these sorts of things, necessarily. No, which is fine. But I'm just kind of being honest about why is like, didn't you like this part? I didn't want to just summarize the video, right? But it's my understanding, it's like he doesn't source that many people who actually talk about postmodernism, and of the ones he does, he kind of makes these four guys a cabal, which is dumb on its face, because there's these other guys that are within their time that are just as, if not more important, and it's like very clearly writing around these guys to avoid a certain truth or reality that this author doesn't want you to know about postmodernism, or it was getting at. It's like watching anime without subtitles, man. I have to kind of figure out with context clues what's going on. I'm not trying. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be honest with my experience with it. But I still want to talk about it, because it's like, this is such a gargantuan, like really impressive effort to really go after this book and being very airtight with the academic review and peer and everything. The peer review, I don't know if it's really peer review necessarily, but it's just, you know, bringing the other videos in. There's other people who have taken this down for this and this reason, and this is the situation and everything. Like, that was all fascinating. And then the other aspect of it, like I was just getting to before I derailed myself, was the get it out, Shaves. Fuck. The presentation was really engaging. Not just like the color coding, but it was I could tell it was very deliberate, templates of assets and everything, with the highlighting, the papers on the surface, and kind of in that 3D perspective, After Effects, whatever. Having the way the authors come up with this paper, like cardboard, and I think you actually call attention to it in the video itself. Like, I represent it like this because it's like this and not this, or something. Or maybe I was hallucinating. I don't know. But then I think all the stock footage was very tasteful. I normally, like, I kind of turn my nose oftentimes at this sort of approach with stock footage, because it's like they don't know what else to put there and they're not being creative. But this, it really felt deliberate, and like, you know, the way that there was one point where he's saying he chopped it up in little pieces and he's put like the chopped, like the vegetables and stuff. It's like, there's thought there. There's like kind of there's a connection. There's a I'm losing words. I've been recording for too long. But yeah, it was just really comprehensive, I guess. But yeah, and all the effects and everything just felt like you were really leveled up. And maybe it was just like, no, that was in my previous video too. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot, I guess. I don't know, it's something I've observed with this one, that I think especially with the challenge of this abstract concept of postmodernism, I don't know how abstract it is. That's how little I'm like, is it even an abstract concept? I know there's Marxism involved. How? Yeah, it was just way above my head. More than ever, more than most videos I've watched, especially covering on Digest. But it still kind of felt like I was able to follow through with it because of your very deliberate, engaging with the audience. Like, tell me if you think this is weird, or like, do you catch this, or what, engaging with it in that way. Being very even-handed, not raging too much or insulting the author in some way. Treating it with respect, despite taking it to town, right? And yeah, the chapters as well, like how it was bifurcated with like the 4 authors he does bring up, where are these authors he doesn't bring up, and etc. like that. All of it just felt very comprehensive, put together, and I couldn't put it in like a great or best videos for me, purely of my own ignorance. I'm just like, that sure sounds interesting. I'm sorry. No, and I'm like, why is it an AniTube Digest? Because it's Study of Swords, and he's a very valuable, engaged, smart, thoughtful, passionate creator in our community that I'm very happy he's in this space. I don't care if he's talking about postmodernism. That is something that's completely beyond me, especially if it's an hour long. I know he really put a lot of effort into it, and I can tell that he did. So yeah, that's why I'm stating my case. And anyway, very impressive work, even though it's above my head so much. I was happy to see it as someone who similarly took down a book for 80 minutes, or or took a book down for, in your case, 69 minutes. Nice. Anyway, yeah, liked the video a good deal. Okay. Yeah, I thought were the best videos of the week, and I was like, yeah. Ygg Studio, I just really liked the full album lyric video, Rogue Alien Pet, which she dropped every couple of days over the course of the thing. And don't deflate the project by like being like, hey guys, I just wrote more shit that's better than everything on the last album. I'm like, that's exciting, but it kind of throws this one under the bus, don't you think? Damn. The cool copy is cool. Anyway, not a huge deal. But yeah, like, I really appreciated this as a lyric video, which I know takes a lot of effort to assemble this way. Especially just like, I think you were talking about the speed at which you have made these tracks, and the fervorousness that you had for them. Taking the time to put the lyrics on in an engaging way was really appreciated, because I think it does add a lot, especially with like a lot of the value of the songs is in the lyrical content. And in your genre of rap here, very easy to have them right over. And it's the case with me with rap, with this music, that with hip hop, I primarily care about production and ability. Lyrical content, there's only like less than 5 or 10 rappers maybe that like I can not just like follow their lyrical content, but like enjoy their lyrical content. It's not that many. A lot of them either rap too fast or in a way that like it feels disorienting, that I just like the flow of the words and then not just be like, wow, I get the themes, man, or anything like that. That being said, I think it was just one listen for me with this album, but I don't think I would be able to extract that in the themes of this album. I think it's just the vibes where you definitely seem a lot, and it maybe it's more so the footage that you accompany this with, which is all really great to see as well, because I don't know just how much is being posted in places I'm not subbed, or I'm just not looking. I don't know. But just seeing everywhere that you go, all the places you've been and visit throughout the U.S. I remember one lyric was, I remember very few lyrics, but the one I was like, I'm a fan of both coasts, or just like I'm coast to coast. Like, I'm a fan of both, so I'm coast to coast, or something like that. There was this like, you really have enjoyed a lot of the different terrains and surroundings. You've just been a lot more well-traveled as of late, which is just a nice thing to see, in contrast, I guess, with your former life, you know. Not that you were like untraveled in back then, but yeah, you really a lot like, you know, a lot like a lot of us, where we kind of keep where we are. But you've done so much more traveling, and there's something about this album that did feel, and again, it was probably the visuals as well accompanying it, that felt a lot more. You felt more experienced and well traveled, and met more people and had more experiences, and that can show in art in general, right? When you have very insular, narrow limited experiences, you can only really write about what you can think up, what your brain has thought of and been exposed to, right? So that was just very encouraging. And, you know, I just really liked all the production behind it. I don't know how much of it was original or just like sampling. I would be interested in how much you've dabbled in original production, or how much in what capacity in the making of this in that way. Just because, yeah, it's an aspect I care about a lot, probably the most when it comes to hip hop music. And I think that the best things with these songs that you have here, for me, was probably actually the choruses. Like, the production was good, but the choruses especially seemed to stand out to me, which felt very punchy, memorable, dramatic. And I say memorable, and I won't be able to recite a single fucking one. Whoop, whoop, in one ear. That's just how with music specifically, I'm just like that. And then I have to like listen to it 6 more times to be like, yeah. Or just keep it in my head or whatever. I don't know what that was. But very abrasive, which is your thing. Yeah, yes, it does that. Which I was expecting, but it is just like listening to it while I'm doing things, and having roommates and everything. I'm like, man, what do they think I'm listening to? You know, it had that vibe of like, oh, I shouldn't be listening to this, and like a sense of danger almost, and that's good. I think that's good with like a level of like, ooh, I feel like there's a level of tension almost to it. Yeah, but this had a lot of fun beats, a lot of fun choruses, a lot of character, shit ton of character, as always. But it's just like, yep, another album from Trixie, where like that's just the thing. And you've released so much music at this point. It's just it's just very encouraging, seeing you progressing and everything. Yeah, I really enjoyed the music. Very, very nice. Fucking liar, you son of a bitch. I was working out yesterday, because I didn't record yesterday, because I was whole thing. But like, I was like in the middle of my workout, and then I saw you pop this out, and I was just like, you fucking, and I was actually upset. I actually was like, no, he lied to his audience. He's a liar. I'm sorry, I'm harping on that. But I was so mad, dude. I was actually like, you can't do that. Because I was like, don't give me hope. But I tweeted this to you, more cordially. You've broken the dam. You know, now you can't be like, no videos on the big 3. Except this one, or but like I think people have said this, and of course no one was going to give you actual ire, because it's more videos from you, and it's a video that is clearly going to be a banger. Like if they've been following your streams, right? It was just sort of like, that's not gonna. The only anger point is that you lied to us. Don't ever do that again. But we're like, yeah, okay, we'll take it. Yeah, we're One Piece fans. We'll eat it. Of course. Kaido is better than anyone realizes. Yeah. And man, you put out so many fucking one-liners and bangers of like the, Odin drinks with everyone, Kaido drinks alone, and just your perspective of him. You don't even I don't think you mention his like starting characterization of like the way I think a lot of fans, myself included, really perceive him as the number one thing is that he is the strongest creature on Earth, right? But you really framed him as he's a fallen character. He wanted to be a hero. He had big dreams. He had ambitions. And this is a character that is wasting away, or that he can't even die an honorable death. He can't even take his own life. And he's the opposite of Luffy in these particular fashions. The way that other, I think, One Piece antagonists, I meant to contrast Luffy, of course, where like they're doing things in a deceitful way and he's doing things in an honest way, or whichever way Oda wants to contrast them. But this was very big in the way that it's not, Kaido isn't just being contrasted against Luffy, he's getting contrasted against Luffy's lineage. And the way that you framed it as how high will the panel of how high will your ceiling go is coming from somebody, not because it's aspirational as a reader. Like, we think it's peak because that's a hype moment. That's a character propping for Luffy because he's being compared to Roger and Whitebeard and Odin and all these other guys. But it's coming from a character that like it wanted to be one of those guys, and he couldn't be for whatever reason, and it's for his own weaknesses or for his own shortcut, or just life getting in his way and letting that get to him. Because the thing is, Luffy, life gets in the way of Luffy too. The whole Summit War saga is the biggest challenge he has to overcome because he has this ego about him that he's just going to charge forward, and anything that he does, it's going to work out. Eni's lobby should not have worked out as well as it did, but he's just a machine going through things and managed to come out on top. And Thriller Bark is like, hold on, this could get really bad, but they happen to squeak through for various reasons. And Sabaody, oh, nope, that's Kokomadeta. Yeah, and but he refuses to accept that and pours all that into trying to save Ace. Not gonna spoil One Piece. Sorry. Doesn't work out that well. But yeah, but it was because he put faith in other people and has friends, and build things up where like he inspires other people, and Kaido doesn't necessarily do that. Except he does. Right? You're saying if he does come back in the story, it would be through King, and you do make that call. I'm happy. I was interested that you made that kind of a call in a video, in a One Piece video essay, and that's why I don't want to make anything like this, and that's why I'm also a little angry. It's like, I want to do it and I can't because I have my own hangups about it. You had your own hangups about not making any videos about the big three, and that's your prerogative. Sure. I hope this convinces you that it's not so bad. It's okay. You can make that. you can do it. But I don't know. I mean, you're experiencing so much peak on such a regular basis, right? That I can understand the essay thing being like, put it on the back. Hold on. You know what I mean? There's plenty you could make. It doesn't. You don't have to make the Naruto video on a particular thing. You don't have to do that. Be pretty cool if you did, though. I'm just saying, and because you're great at this. You're very good at the sourcing, the connections, the themes, taking the story at face value, describing things in a very empathetic, encouraging, passionate way. I have to tell you, I feel like you maybe know this. I wasn't the most hot about your videos in the past. Just as someone who would make in my own videos, in my perspective, and not knowing you too well, you know, like I only knew you as that, as your video voice or as the way that you write and everything. But you being yourself more on stream and having more experience to that really elevates when you actually put on this like specific focus. I don't even want to say a mask or a character or something. It's not that, really. It is an elevation, because when you're having the scripting thing and you have a particular cadence and a delivery in your video voice, as you call it on stream, it feels elevated now. That feels very engaging, that I'm hanging on every word almost, because I have this established context of getting to know you more on an individual level as AJ on your streams and interacting in various ways. I think that was really, I just want to like point out the value of that for me personally, I think, and I hope that enriches people's experience with your videos as well. As good as your videos were in the past, and how people have been fans of you for longer than you've been streaming, of course. But I'm just saying, I guess, like, I think that your streaming, and especially because it seems like the streaming was what contributed to you being able to move off of your job and pursue full-time content creation, which is fantastic. There is immense value in what you're doing with the streaming, but in ways that I think is, to me, interesting, that it feels like the videos feel like an event, or very, 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 very special, that like you didn't just do this because you have to make a video or something. It doesn't feel like that. It might be that in some slight way, but I guess in this dynamic now, it just feels very special. Despite you lying to your audience, don't do that. I'll also say of course, editing by Fiji was very, very good. I don't know if it goes by Fiji or Radman, but yeah, it had really, really impressive. I wasn't sure about like the flicker, like the old timey footage for the manga and stuff like that. But I think especially the way that the way he cooks with the footage of transitions with different things and selection of when you're showing certain things versus what Alex is saying was really impressive. Especially because I think AJ was doing a lot of here's my interpretation of the character. There wasn't a whole, especially in that first part, there wasn't as much textual, when he does this in this chapter or when he says this, there wasn't as much of that. It is just kind of trying to paint this character. Here's my version. Here's not my version, really. It's my interpretation of this character, right? Of like how I see him. You really push him in that, and like this is him in a way that feels very fresh, and it sounds like, just based on some stray things I was reading in comments and everything, that it feels like you are turning people around on him, and they're like, "Damn it, like shit!" Like, wow, I was so stupid to not see this. Not me. I like Kaido. I liked Kaido. Yeah, he was in my favorite antags in my collage. I got that cred. But definitely for you have a very great reading of him. I highly encourage people to check this out if they're One Piece fans or caught up and everything. And oh my gosh, yeah, you're very, very good at this. And it's like, you're gonna do this for every character? No, I don't need you to. I don't. And I know, because I wonder. I don't know if you've probably somewhere in the streams or whatever. But like, the reason you're not doing Big 3 content, even when you only just started Bleach, you've already kind of sworn off you're not doing it. That seemed weird to me. But I can understand if, I don't know what the reason is, but maybe one of the reasons is you're worried about the reception, about like the fans that it would cater to, like that you would attract. You'd become a Shonen Tube channel. But dude, you talk about Hunter x Hunter and Haikyuu, like you are like, no, that's okay. Like, but you could also be video games and stuff like, and Berserk and everything, and the other stuff that you talk about. I don't see what I especially think that the Big 3 deserve people like you talking about. You owe it to the community. Like, because they've had this very lofty reputation for so long. in the hands of, let's face it, idiots. I can say this because I have a podcast called Pissed Pirates where I'm specifically calling out, not too often because I try not to dwell in these fucking communities really that much because they're so exhausting, but just like directly calling out shitty One Piece fans, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of them. It's pretty massive. I get trying to avoid that, but like, I mean, especially now that a lot of your content is starting to be more geared towards the streams with just how regular you're doing them, you're gonna be associated with these big three, especially when you put Naruto and Luffy in your top echelon of characters, which they're deserving, and that's great. I'm happy to see that. But like, I don't know. I just wouldn't be afraid of being a big three person because I think you'll mop the floor with these guys. The competition's not. It leaves a lot to be desired in some places. So I think it would be. That's I think where people are saying you owe it to the community. I think it's a really dumb way. That's really stupid. You don't owe anybody anything. You should do things that you feel the urge, like the way any of us make videos. I have feel the urge or responsibility or not the responsibility owed to the community. I was talking responsibility in my case with Digest, where I say that I'm trying to make this on a regular basis, either weekly or now that I'm doing it bi-weekly, just because it feels better. Right? Sometimes it's dry weeks, whatever. But like I'm motivated by I have to do this. You know what I mean? And I love doing it. I value doing this. But yeah, that's sort of the perspective I have. Whatever motivates us to make videos, that should be our guiding principle, and not what other people say. Right? That's what I'm trying. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, and you know that. But yeah, that's generally my thing. But like, stellar video, obviously. I think with what you're saying about Kaido and how it was edited, yeah, very, very valuable. I hope this turns a lot of people around. Banger. But the thumb is, for some reason, the thumb's always gonna make me mad because it's it's just Kaido's like really angry, grinning face, being like, "Yeah, I'm making a One Piece video when I said I wasn't." Yeah, I guess I hate being bamboozled, but I guess I'm okay with it. Steak Bentley with a ping pong video, perfect coming of age story. Yeah, and this. I've talked about this stuff before, but it's just still really rock solid with understanding the material, presenting in a fun kind of laid back way that's like it feels like your older brother recommending you this show. It kind of feels like that older brother type of quality, almost like Demolition D in a way. And I may have, I don't know if I've made that connection before or whatever. But yeah, like the humor in this, slight humor, but like a tasteful amount, but largely like really understanding it. And I like the comprehension of acknowledging the manga, but like here's a crucial difference I thought was interesting. And I'm mostly going to be talking about the anime, but assume that the manga counts as well. That was a good handling of that situation, I think. Besides just being like ping pong animation, because it's like, there's a manga, right? There's a movie, right? The movie excuse there was nobody seeding it, really? Okay. But that's fine. It didn't need to be a whole comprehensive thing, whatever. But yeah, it's been years since I saw ping pong personally, but it really felt like, yeah, it was kind of the exact experience I had, where it's a lot of the conceptual stuff that's strewn throughout the series, like the first first couple episodes, and then slowly building out throughout it, and then it's the last two that's like deserve the really core focus. Like this is where it completely sticks to landing, totally nails it, and everything. While acknowledging all the smaller details that not a lot of just general reviewers might bring up, like the one side character that like quits, travels the world, and realizes he likes ping pong at the end. I think he called him Afro Guy. I remember that character. It's been years and it wasn't in my mind, but when you brought him up, I was like, oh yeah, like that guy happened. That happened too. But yeah, the emotion you brought to this, again, the handling of the not too summary based, but not too like production boring, whatever. Right amount of humor, very very deft handling, I think, and not like oh, this is a sensitive subject matter. It's fucking, it's ping pong. It's fine. It's a fun, uplifting story, but just in a way that felt like it didn't feel rote. I think a video like this could be very very rote, and you just don't. I think you just succeed really really well. It's exactly what it needs to be, and fantastic. As a ping pong fan, I was like, yeah, banger. It's like, yeah, that's it. That's peak. Not even going too deeply into like the stuff that Yuasa's doing in a production sense, but that's okay, because that's a whole other story. But I think you really trying to focus in on this as a story and as a theme, as it being a coming of age story. I think the focus all made sense and was great. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have too much else to say beyond that. Very short analysis, really, but very big kudos, and I'm very happy we're talking about it. Always a good day when someone talks about ping pong type of deal. Hell yeah. Okay, and then I'm gonna have the best video of the week, the one at the end. He just commented on the last digest, so I know you're out there. Saint. First time I'm talking about his channel, because I think he only just started posting a little while ago. Only 9 months ago. First video I'm talking about of his. And 3.5 hours of delinquent manga and anime. Specifically manga, but you do bring up the anime and show it and everything. 2 things off the bat. Lying liar with this thumbnail. You really don't talk about JoJo. You definitely don't talk about... You mentioned Yu Yu Hakusho, but you don't talk about it. GTO is there, and you recommend it at the end, but it's lumped. It's lumped with the other like teacher delinquent stuff that you kind of rapid fire because everyone knows GTO. It just comes off that way. It's fair enough section, a little longer than some of the other ones, but it's not like Rokudan Ashi or how long you talk about Bad Boys. I think Bad Boys was the longest section. I don't know if I'm right about that. Kyoko Orewa is close, but I think it was Bad Boys just because of how long you talked about the essay. I understand. Slam dunks on but it's like I wish you talked about some of these series. And you do mention Tokyo Revengers, obviously, because this is the more relevant one. But of course you trash. It makes sense. I don't know. It seemed like you read and experienced these in chronological order in the way that you talked about them in the video, which is a comprehensive way to go about it. But it is, to me, it didn't need to be this long, man. I was happy. What's reason it's in for the best of the week for me is not just simply that it long therefore good. Definitely fucking not. Oh my god, no. I was worried this was going to be like a summary video where it's just kind of like summarizing a bunch of these delinquent stuff or whatever. No, it was actually very comprehensive, and not just like in a summary way, but like, and you do mention the plot in some places, but the bulk of it felt like genuine reviews of these series of like, this is what it's doing, this is what it's contributing, this is what's influential about it, this is what it's doing kind of poorly, this is what it's doing really shitty, or whatever. Being honest with all your perspectives and takes about them. It does deteriorate over time because very clearly you were tired of this subject, which is fair, with just the scope of the project. Something this size and this ambitious requires what's the word? Not perseverance. Yeah, that's the word. I was like, I had it. It requires an intense amount of focus and perseverance to care. It reminded me of my encyclopedia video where not only of like reading the entire anime encyclopedia is an endurance in itself and trying to, have the respect for this book, but even within the encyclopedia itself, you can tell from reading it that there's articles that they care about, that they're prioritizing, that they're, writing good things about it or some informative things. And there's other article entries where they're copying off other reviews. Not that was a prevalent thing, but that was at least one case where we did find that they were doing that in some places. So who knows how many other times they did it. But also like one sentence, or having complete contempt for this series because they couldn't bother, like they couldn't muster the care to do that. And I would say a third of this video were titles that you included because you read. Did you read all of Beelzebub? I don't know. Like, there were some that you said that you dropped. They were like, and you say at least twice in the video where it's like, I hated this thing, but I read other manga that were longer, but I still finished. But this one I couldn't even bother, or whatever. And like, then why bring it up? This is like, oh, I'm trying to be comprehensive. Well, you're not being comprehensive if not only there's a list that you go off at the end where you just didn't have anything to say about them, or you couldn't read them because they were untranslated or not available in some capacity. But then there's other again, several of the anime and manga on the thumbnail that you're just explicitly not talking about. Like, you bring up like some of the best in your power rankings, real Sukeban Deka and Sakikage Otokojiku. Like, they're mentioned in the video, but you don't really dedicate a section to them, and that's okay. You don't. I'm not like, you must have every, like. I'm not like holding that. Like, it's 3.5 hours. It's incredible. It's like, yeah, it deserves its own video. I think that's great. Make a real video. I think Otokojiku is not really delinquent. It's more of like a martial arts thing. But you're talking about the author of those particular works. It didn't feel like you were specifically talking about Sakigake, which I've seen. But like, you didn't really talk about it. And I'm like, but you put it in this ranking. And then Sukeban Deka was like, there was all the all the like Bancho girls like in that Sukeban Deka kind of started, but it didn't feel like you made a section about it because it was like, I didn't really want to talk about. I forget the reason you made for it, but you kind of glossed over it. I get it. Like, that's fine and fair because you're not going to care about every title like this. It's impossible. There's no way. So it like, for me, and I'm sorry that this is already kind of front loaded with like problems, I guess, or just things that stood out in that way. But like the stuff with the Kamikaze Biker book that you were citing off of, that could have been its own video. I really think, like, not just like just focusing on Bokusozuku. I really liked that you really separated it, Banchos, Yankees, and Bokusozuku, and they're all in that group of delinquents, and that's why we're calling them delinquent manga and not Bancho manga or Bokusozuku or whatever. Kind of lumping all together. They have similar, they have cross appeal, overlap, similar ideas and themes and focuses, and that's why you're not focusing on Slam Dunk, even though it has delinquent elements. It's why you're not talking about Yu Yu Hakusho. It's why you're not talking about JoJo, because it's not really the same appeals. I was thinking it's the same way with what I'm trying to do with my Magical Girl video about Sally the Witch and Ako-chan specifically is what I'm probably looking at this first part. I don't know. This is what it's shaping up to be, really just those two series. But it is trying to get to the bottom of like, what is a Magical Girl series, in so that, you know, like, if you recommend this show to someone, is a Magical Girl fan going to enjoy this show because it has a magical girl in it, like a girl with a little wand and does this thing, or not? Or is it like, no, this is something different, like, this has a magical girl in it, but it's not a magical girl show. Recreators is not a magical girl show, even though it has a magical girl in it, right? Because it's a genre. It's not simply a content indicator, not to make my own platform type of thing. But I'm sure you could say the same about Delinquent series, right? As a genre, it's not really about the action or the martial arts or the making a tournament out of it. It's more of a slice of life. It has more comedy to it, but it has more of a bite and an edge and a melancholy and an ephemeral, liminal type thing. There's these themes that you're talking about throughout discussing these series that I think could have been a lot more honed in and comprehensive, while having that established baseline of like, hey, I read this many series, which is this many chapters and everything. This is how much I fucking read. But I think it would be okay if you were transparent about, like, I'm going to focus on these. Crows, Kyoko Oriwa, Roku Danashi Blues, Bebop. You know what I mean? Like honing him in on, like, to really get the Otoko Ippiki, including, you know, and obviously I know the way you wanted to do it was making this big thing and being comprehensive and everything. But I'm just saying what the gaps were ended up being these titles that didn't need to be thrown under the bus. Or like, you shitting on Tokyo Revengers and Windbreaker I guess is relevant, but does nothing to your point about the value of these titles. And I don't know if you like, and it was a little disheartening the way this video concluded, just being like, oh, what was I talking about again? And like, that's funny, but it didn't feel like it felt like it stopped. It felt like, I'm never doing that again. Or it kind of had that, the vibes were emanating as a creator coming onto your audience, I think. And that detracts from the point and the ultimate reason you made this in the first place, right? I feel like there was many points in this video that I think you stuck the landing and you were doing really great stuff. I have to tell you, generally, because this is my first video I've seen of yours, really great voice, really great performance, really great humor, extremely well researched. Just doing the effort to reading these titles, showing as much as you did show, which, like, I get there was plenty of instances where there was content, it was like content ID bullshit, copyright, whatever, and then there's like, I didn't really feel like putting manga panels here, or I couldn't find this, or whatever reason. Like you were constantly caveating things within text in the video, which would be sloppy in other situations, in other contexts, but in a 3.5 hour video where you're and also just the I could be complaining more, right? In terms of the showing the footage, there was really not much clip selection. It was just plopping the fucking OVA in and squishing it to a certain time to like speed it up. It was like, oh wow, I feel like I watched all of Bad Boys at the time that you talked about it. At least that particular OVA. I know you're mainly talking about the manga in that instance, but yeah, it just kind of felt like that. But that's okay. Or just like repeating with the Kyoko Ori, because it's like, yeah, I don't want to download too much, but you still had a ton that you showed, which was very appreciative. I think you were able to represent everything pretty well for the most part. I didn't feel bothered at all by the things you didn't feel comfortable showing because it was very sensitive or, yabai topics, which I get. But yeah, I was very appreciative. I wrote down specifically that I was able to really comprehend what Bebop High School is and what Roku Danashi Blues is, like what these series are really, what they are and what they're trying to do, because I've heard of them so much, but I haven't experienced them myself yet. But it didn't feel like a summary video of those. It was like, here's the vibe. It's the best thing in that instance was like, if Bebop High School is the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia of delinquent manga, Roku Danashi is like the community of delinquent manga. I'm like, that's a really good way to put it. That this feels like I instantly get what you mean, even though there's like, wait, what does that mean? I get the vibes are immaculate, is what I'm saying in terms of the points, I guess. Yeah, but like for me, all the stuff that like didn't have the actual like everything just didn't need to be in the video. It just didn't need to be this long. You didn't need to demonstrably burn yourself out. I felt bad just about seeing that because it felt like by the end of the video you were very indifferent about the whole thing, which is fair, with you being exhausted and everything. But like I said earlier, if you're going to take on something like this, have the perseverance to see it all the way through. And obviously you did because the video's out, but not without, supreme exhaustion and everything. I'm very happy to see Otaku Ibiki. Was that footage of Otaku Ibiki Gaki Daisho? Because I swear that show's just, the anime is just not online. That anime just, I haven't looked again. Maybe they have in the last year since I've looked. I don't know, but like, was that footage that I've never seen before? Like, where's that? That was impressive. I was like, whoa. But very happy to see that represented. Obviously, and I've seen Kokoro Oriwa and Shonen Bakusozaku. But you've definitely convinced me and turned me on specifically all the stuff that you do have in your power rankings. I liked the pyramid thing of who could be who in a fight. Or something that was completely incomprehensive to me. I was like, what? But I was when you had like here's the ones I recommend. Here's the order in which I think is the most important that you read or /watch. That was appreciative. But really, of those, what really stood out to me was Hot Road, which I don't even think was on your top 20 because I guess you didn't really finish it necessarily. That looked really interesting, and your tone of that section was really great. It was really, really great. Same thing with Kichi. I think it felt like a completely different recording. Obviously, it's multiple recordings because it's it's as long as it is. But that one is like, you were in a different headspace for that, and it felt like that was a banger. I was just like, that, you really sold me on that, especially even though it does have like really intense themes of what you talk about. But like, that was like, whoa. Crows, obviously. I had literally never heard of Crows. I had heard of Rokonanashi, I heard of Bebop, I heard of some of the other ones that you mentioned, Rookies and everything. Never heard of Crows. I was like, ooh, okay, yeah, all right, you sold me on that one. Blue Spring definitely sold me on that one, the manga and the film. I wish you spent more time on the manga, because that was actually really interesting art style. I guess it may be because it's short, but the film is also too, like, well, that's excellent. I love that idea. And then the other one, the last one that stood out to me, Yankee Go Tojuku, just has like a modern spin on it, type of thing. You know, now we have cell phones type of thing. I was like, oh yeah, okay. Though all that stuff you definitely sold me on, so thank you so much for that. I'm definitely interested in checking those out. But yeah, so that's like the best I can ask for when a video is like, oh, I gotta go watch that. That's invaluable to me. Super incredibly valuable. Very additive. I definitely would say this is the best delinquent video on YouTube, just for its sheer breadth and honesty and entertainment value. Like, it did feel like 3.5 hours for sure. I definitely don't think it needed to be that long. If you had honed it to like the top 5, your top 5 that you had there, or just things that really mattered, and just like cut out all the noise and not worry about, because I don't know if you included them just because people were like, what about Tokyo Revengers? And you're like, yeah, what about it? It's trash. Yeah. Anything else? Come again. Any other opinions? No. But yeah, like, I could have done without that, personally. I think you say in the video too, it's like, I'd rather talk about stuff I like. I'm like okay. Anyway, but I see the value in that sort of stuff. Obviously, you can speak critically of these series, of course. It's just like, to what end? Like, what are we learning about this? When it's like, oh, this is another generic, they don't do anything with this. Did we learn anything besides don't bother? You could have just not said anything and let the audience member figure that out for themselves. Like, oh, I wonder. And then find out that it's basic. There's a reason you didn't talk about them, is what I'm saying. Anyway, no, it's not a big deal, though. But yeah, I really, really liked that. And thank you for making that. Looking forward to what you have next, if any, because I'm sure you're going to take a little while. Take a little break, which is fair. And that'll do it for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great 2 weeks. I'm so sorry this was late. I couldn't record it on Monday, and then I just finished at like 9:45. I'm like, ain't no way I'm editing this today. Shit. And I have other work I have to do. I'm so sorry. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was worth the wait. It was a nice meaty digest. You guys are great. You have a great 2 weeks. Yo, peace.